Everything will collapse, and it will be worse than 1929, according to investment guru Warren Buffett. It's interesting how history occasionally likes to recall certain dates connected to specific memories, and a perfect example of that is the year 1929. A lot of people still recall this year with emotional wounds. But why is this year so dreadful? Why is 1929 suddenly become important in our time, as predicted by legendary investor Warren Buffett? Let's go deeper. Have you ever heard of the decades-long Great Depression? The Great Depression had a substantial impact on practically every country and everything in the world. It was the biggest economic catastrophe to ever hit the industrialized world, with a high unemployment rate and severe deflation. It was so severe, in fact, that everyone from millionaire businessmen to cooks and janitors placed their money in stocks. But unfortunately, this was a terrible move because that was when the Great Fall occurred. It really was a disaster. On September 3rd, 1929, the Dow average closed at 381.17. So people were thrilled and bought equities on margin, which worked marvelously, Warren said. And then, at that time, his father, who was 26 years old, sold stocks to customers as a bank employee. But later on, during November 13th, 1929, the Dow fell 48% to 198.69%. So his father chose to remain at home to avoid confronting the clients he had sold stocks to. After 9 months, Warren Buffett was born, but on the last trading day before he was born, which was August 30th, 1930, the Dow was up 20% from 240.42 from its 1929 low. In the fall of 1930, Warren said that people did not believe that they were experiencing a Great Depression. Instead, they believed that they were experiencing a recession that happened at least a dozen times before, but not necessarily when stock markets were significant. 10 days following Warren's birth, the stock market did manage to increase by just 1% to 2% over the course of those 10 days. And on August 7th, 1932, the Dow reached a low of 41.22, which was almost 2 years later. Looking at the years 1929 to 1951, out of the 230 years that the nation had existed, 20 of those were characterized by absolutely no economic growth and a lack of public awareness of the nation's wealth, according to Warren, who noted that the country had only been in existence for 140 years when it began. So if you bought a stock in the 30s, believing that the late 1929 crash was the worst and it had reached its lowest point, Warren calculated it would take almost 20 years or until 1951 for your stock to reach break-even. He says if someone had given him $1,000 on the day he was born and he had bought stocks with it and bought the Dow average, his $1,000 would have become $170 in less than 2 years. Similar to this, Warren warns that if you are purchasing stocks now and anticipate that the recession will end in the next 2 or 3 or even 3 or 5 years, and you think that you're going to make a sizable profit, you should reconsider your position, because you can find yourself thinking or acting similarly to investors who made their own investments in 1930 and had to wait more than 20 years for their stock price to recover. So is Buffett predicting a drought similar to the 1929 one? Yes, Buffett may be observing a market drought similar to 1929, and he says that in terms of markets, anything is possible, and as a result, you've got to think carefully and balance risk and reward when making investments in the near future, because it is so uncertain. It's better to be safe than sorry, and it's preferable to win less money and have backup funds available for the worst-case scenario than to have to wait 20 years, just like in the 1930s to the 1950s. He also fully agrees that no one can predict what will happen to the market tomorrow, next year, or the year after that, and he strongly advises you to think twice if you're thinking, wow, the stock market is inexpensive, I'm going to throw everything in. And for those trading who have recently managed to make money, whether they were short or long, and feel certain that they will continue to make money throughout this downturn, Warren says, think again, because no one can predict what the market will do in the future, and your pride may just end up being your greatest pain. This is his warning.